Hello YouTube, how's it going? This is the crossover and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be continuing my individual scouting reports for the 2022 NBA draft, and today's video is going to be about Purdue's Jaden Ivey. This video is going to be a little bit awkward as, I am a student at Rutgers, New Brunswick, and we just came off of defeating the number one team in the country, which Jaden Ivey just so happens to play for. I was at that game. It was absolutely incredible. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a New York fan. I'm a Knicks fan, Giants fan, Mets fan. I've been to games for all three teams, and let me just tell you something. That experience at the rack, playing that number one team, the crowd, it was just an amazing experience. It was something that I will remember for the rest of my life. That I will go on to tell my kids about, years from now. So, this is a bit awkward, again, coming from, a Rutgers student, but again, talking about Jaden Ivey, the individual here, which is a prospect that I'm very high on, as we will get into in the video. Without any further delay, let's get straight into it. Moving on to some stats regarding Jaden Ivey, he stands at about 6 feet 4 inches and weighs about 195 pounds and has a 6 foot 7 inch wingspan, which isn't necessarily great considering he is 6'4". You'd prefer that wingspan to be around 6 feet, maybe 8, 9, 10 inch, right around that range. It would be great if he did have, right around that 7 foot wingspan. But, a 6 foot 7 inch wingspan isn't necessarily great, but it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But you prefer it to be, a little bit bigger. Then regarding his stats this year, he is a sophomore. So this is his second year in college at Purdue, as previously mentioned, where he is averaging pretty much 16 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game, and 1.5 steals per game. And regarding basketball play outside of college, he did participate with Team USA in their FIBA U19 tournament over the summer, where he was a standout player, in my opinion, the second best player on the team behind Chet Holmgren, who we have talked about in his own scouting video, where Jaden Ivey did average 12.3 points per game, 3 rebounds, nearly 2.5 assists per game at 1.9, and then 1.6 steals per game. Moving on to Jaden Ivey's strengths. As a prospect, first up, we have his size, physicality, and athleticism at that guard position, right? Being at that 6'4" height, and then when you take a look at the other measurements in terms of his weight being being right around 195 to 200 pounds is solid, but, maybe you'd like to see that be a little bit bigger. And as well as his wingspan, leaving some on the table, right? When you watch him play, and not only on tape, but in person as well, he just looks physically dominant, right? He just has an NBA body, which is very enticing moving forward as he continues to add weight. You only expect him to get stronger and bigger, and his athleticism is something special, man. I'd be hard pressed to find another athlete in this class that is comparable to Jaden Ivey at that guard position. When watching him play, I noticed it on tape as well. But what I would compare Jaden Ivey to is a poor man's John Morant, and that's no slight on Jaden Ivey, as John Morant is, when he's healthy, was in contention for not only being an All-Star but an All NBA candidate at that guard position, right? So being a poor man's John Morant is no small task. So for Jaden Ivey, that's a hell of an accomplishment, and he's very, very similar to John Morant. They have very similar strengths. They move around the court very similar. They have similar tendencies. They have similar moves. One thing that I did notice that Jaden Ivey loves to do, which John Morant does a lot too, where he kind of in the half court as well, but mainly in transition, he likes to do a little stop hezzy, and then he'll explode. And that first step, while it isn't necessarily at that John Morant level, right? Because John Morant is just, like an uber tier athlete. And while Jaden Ivey is an awesome athlete, he's not necessarily at that John Morant level, right? Hence why he is a poor man's John Morant, right? But his first step is amazing. And it's an unstoppable move, right? And he's able to get to pretty much wherever he wants on the court at will. You really see that in person. The way he's just able to he likes to press into defenders, and then he does a great job of what John Morant does as well. That little throw around dribble where he kind of maneuvers himself around the court wherever he pleases, and he's able to create so much space while he is leaning into the defenders, right? So while he's leaning into them, he'll kind of move away a little bit, and then he'll kind of wrap it around on the defender's side, and then he'll kind of slither around just because he's just so athletic and quick, right? Which is a great move. He's advanced as a ball handler, very polished. I don't think he's necessarily, like a Darius Garland or Trae Young or anything like that, but he's a very solid ball handler at that 6'4" size. And he's a great finisher at the basket. Which, in my opinion, looking at my second point, which is his ability to put pressure on the defense and attack downhill, in my opinion, that's the best attribute of Jaden Ivey as a prospect in terms of tangibility, what we've seen on the floor, right? His ability to put pressure on the defense and attack downhill, and not only that, but create open shots for his teammates is unlike anybody else in the NBA except maybe Ja Morant, which in my opinion, Ja Morant has done the best job of that in the NBA this season, and Jaden Ivey is strikingly similar to Ja Morant in that aspect. Again, as I previously mentioned, his ability to just get to wherever he wants at the court at will. He knows nobody can stop him, and he takes advantage of that. His ability to finish around the rim is amazing. As I stated, he's not necessarily that John Morant athlete, but he's a great athlete. He has hang time. He's able to finish around the basket. I do think he can get a little bit stronger though, as he has had moments where he struggled to finish around the basket, especially at that Rutgers game that I went to on Thursday. But I think he can afford to add a little bit of weight, but he's a great finisher as it is now. What really impresses me is his ability to find his teammates. Right, not a lot of prospects, period, in the past couple of years have shown his ability to recognize, hey, the defense can't stop me. Let me open up my shots for teammates, right? And not only does a great job of doing that, but the vision that he has while he's up in the air is incredibly impressive. You know, I mean, outside of John Morant, I've never really seen too many prospects in the past couple of years do this. Maybe Jalen Green was a great athlete, but Jalen Green is not nearly the playmaker or has the vision that Jaden Ivey has, right? Even a player like Cade Cunningham, who I thought is a great playmaker, was much more of an all-around scorer and wasn't able to put pressure on the rim the way Jaden Ivey has. Last year I stated that Josh Giddey was the best pick and roll player in that 2021 draft. You know, Josh Giddey just doesn't have the athleticism of a Jaden Ivey to be able to do what he can do. So for him to be only 20 years old, be a sophomore in college, and be able to recognize that defenses can't stop me, right? I can finish wherever I can. Let me take advantage of that and create for my teammates is such a special trait, and that's going to be able to translate to the NBA from day one. And he's done such a good job in terms of feeding his teammates. And Purdue has done a great job of surrounding him with shooters. They have a lot of shooters. It's a very good program, and they're knockdown shooters. And he's done a great job of being able to find them, whether it's cross-court passes. He's not even necessarily looking sometimes. So again, I think that's going to be his best asset moving forward as he transitions onto the NBA after this season. And I also highlight that his defensive versatility is a strength. We'll get into some of the specifics about his defense later on in another section of this video, but in terms of his defensive versatility as a potential, as an upside, I definitely see it for him. Again, with his athleticism, with his size, he's much bigger than John Morant. I'd say he's about 3'4". John Morant really looks like he's about 6'1", maybe 6 feet. Jaden Ivey is a solid 6'4". And he has potential to grow to be 6'4", 6'5". So there's no attacking him like you can a John Morant just due to how small he is, right? Jaden Ivey is always going to be a player that, again, with his athleticism, it's going to be hard for players to beat him. And the only way players are going to beat him is if he allows them to beat him, which we will get into later. And, he is listed at 195 to 200 pounds. But again, as I stated, as he continues to add weight, I could see him definitely defending ones, twos, potentially some threes. And I expect him to be an awesome help side defender as well, which, he should be able to take advantage of due to the incredible athleticism that he does have, be almost a help side rim protector at times in the NBA, which I'm definitely expecting to see, and will be vastly disappointed if I do not see some highlights of that next year. And then moving on, he's a great rebounder at his size, and you have to keep in mind that the numbers aren't that great this year due to him playing with 7'4" Zach Edey and Trevion Williams, who is, in my opinion, are a top 3 post player. In college basketball, he was feasting against my Rutgers. He was hitting all kinds of hook shots. He was shimmying in the post, hitting fadeaways, made all his free throws. He's playing with 2 great big men. So the rebounds aren't going to necessarily be there, but you really saw that stand out at the U19 FIBA level, where he was arguably Team USA's best rebounder. Him, Kenneth Lofton, and Chet Holmgren, and those 2 are big men, right? Chet Holmgren is a legit 7-footer, and Kenneth Lofton is 6'7", 270 pounds. So for Jaden Ivey to be up there with them, that's a great sign, right? And you see it at times where he's able to just grab the rebound and attack and create fast break opportunities, which is amazing for his shooters. As I previously stated, he's able to put pressure downhill as nobody can really stop him. So I expect his rebounding to transition to the NBA level, where he's only going to have more space around him, and he's going to have the opportunity to potentially play with some bigs that can space the floor for him. So he can go 5 out, right? The bigs can just shoot up the lanes, and in fast break situations, as they can rely on Jaden Ivey to clean up some boards. And moving on to his shooting, he is a very solid catch and shoot shooter. Again, these Ja Morant comparisons, I'm telling you guys, if you guys haven't watched Jaden Ivey, he really is like Ja Morant. It's kind of weird how similar they are. He has a very similar shot to Ja Morant, where they both shoot low. He doesn't even necessarily lift his shooting hand all that much. It's kind of straightforward-ish, very similar to Ja Morant. But he's a very good catch and shooter. He's shooting a very solid percentage on the year, and I expect that to continue into the NBA. And while I am a little bit concerned about the mechanics of his shot, as I was with a player such as Ja Morant, who has struggled with his shot up until this point in his NBA career. But Jaden Ivey has been much more consistent, at the college level. And I think he has thrived off playing with players such as Travion Williams and Zach Edey, right? Those caliber of players where they command attention from the defense. So he's been able to be much more of a spot-up shooter than necessarily Ja had the luxury of being during his time at Murray State. But regardless, Jaden Ivey has been a very solid catch and shoot shooter. And, I think he's going to be able to play with other ball handlers in the NBA, which is great. He's going to be able to play both on and off the ball at the NBA level, right? Being able to both provide space. And while I do think that his percentages might be a little shaky at first, I think he will grow into it, as his career progresses. But I think he will, when all is said and done, be a very solid shooter, at least off ball in the NBA level. We'll talk about his on ball shooting in a bit. And again, his potential as a playmaker. He's shown flashes as a pick and roll ball handler. Again, what I stated about him being able to put pressure on the rim and create for his teammates in that sense. But what I mean by his potential as a playmaker is I mean for him to be the full-fledged, engine of an offense, right? I think Jaden Ivey has the potential to be that, right? You've seen the flashes with the kind of passes he's capable of making, but again, his playmaking is something that we will talk about in a little bit. But the passes that we have seen him make leads me to believe that he has the potential to be a number one ball handler in the NBA. At the very least, it is a possibility, right? We will talk about his playmaking in a little bit, but regardless, his potential as a playmaker due to the passes he's able to make and the reads that he's able to make has been very impressive, and he's shown flashes as a pick and roll ball handler at the. Moving on to the concerns I have regarding Jaden Ivey. First up, I have what is his exact position, right? As I highlighted, he's shown flashes as a pick and roll ball handler, right? Being that number one perimeter option, for an NBA caliber team. But again, he hasn't necessarily shown that he is a full-fledged playmaker, right? He's not the point guard, at Purdue. They do have another point guard, so he's not necessarily running the offense. And that's what I'm really concerned about. Can Jaden Ivey take advantage of the flashes that he's shown as a pick and roll ball handler to fledge out that part of his game and become a true point guard and be able to run an NBA offense effective enough, right? Again, he's great at attacking the rim and being able to create for his other teammates, right? But he hasn't necessarily shown the ability to run a full-fledged offense. And while I definitely do think he has the talent, don't get me wrong, he has the talent, he has the ability to do it. It's just a question of, can he put it all together, right? And ultimately, I believe he will. I think at the NBA level, he will develop into becoming a point guard. But again, that is a concern for now because it's like he's shown flashes as a playmaker, but he's not necessarily a point guard. But he creates a lot as if he is a point guard, but his talent would almost suggest as if he would be a primary ball handler like a Ja Morant, right? His talent and his ability to again, I've been stating it all video, his ability to attack the rim and create pressure on the defense, open up opportunities for his teammates is similar to a Ja Morant, right? And that kind of player demands a team to be around him just because of how good that specific skill set is. But he's shown flashes of being a good to great pick and roll ball handler. And again, I do think he has the ability, and I do think he has the vision. He has the ball handling. But again, can he fledge out that part of his game? That's really going to determine what position he plays. And if he can't do that, he's going to be a 2, most likely a combo guard in the NBA. I think he'll be able to handle offense at times, maybe just not consistently. However, if he is able to become a good to great pick and roll ball handler and effectively run an NBA offense, then he is a point guard at the NBA level. And then my next concern for Jaden Ivey is what is the ceiling on his playmaking, which, as we previously discussed, again, the playmaking is really going to determine what position he plays. Again, if he can flesh out that ball handling, right, then he'll be a point guard. If he can't, then he's ultimately a shooting guard or more necessarily a combo guard, kind of in almost like Killian Hayes role, where Killian Hayes, not and believe me, I think Jaden Ivey. If Jaden Ivey was in the NBA right now, I think he'd be better than Killian. Killian Hayes is not good, but it's comparable in the sense that Killian Hayes has shown flashes of being able to handle running an NBA offense, right? But he just hasn't done it consistently enough. He doesn't make the consistently correct reads, or almost similar to a Kevin Porter Jr. Excuse me, with the Killian Hayes comparison, because that's almost disrespectful to Jaden Ivey. More so on the Kevin Porter Jr., where he has to be able to balance between his and feeding his teammates at an NBA level. And he does a great job of doing that, when he's attacking the rim, but he needs to be able to do that while running an offense, right? He needs to be able to decide, okay, I'm bringing the ball down the floor. Do I just shoot the ball, not pass it to anybody because, it's just my time to shine? Or do I try to move the ball around, get my teammates shots, right? That's something that Jaden Ivey is going to have to work on. And again, if he can figure that part of his game out, he's going to be a point guard. And if that playmaking continues to fledge itself out, and his pick and roll ball handling and overall decision making, and his ability to run an NBA offense becomes as good as just his ability to find his teammates when he's attacking the basket right now as a sophomore in college, then he's definitely amongst the best point guards, in my opinion, in the NBA. That's the ceiling of Jaden Ivey. His ceiling is an all-star caliber of point guard, a notch right below John Morant, right? As I said, a poor man's John Morant, which, I'd assume would be an all-star caliber player, as John Morant is an all-NBA caliber of player, right? And then my final concern for Jaden Ivey is just, can he expand on his on-ball shooting? It's a big concern of mine. As his shot, he's able to shoot off the ball at the college level, but it's just with that form. You saw John Morant, who has pretty much the exact same form, struggle with it. So I am a bit concerned about Jaden Ivey's ability to shoot on ball. Right, I stated that I think he will be a solid shooter off the ball, but in terms of his ability to fledge out his on ball shooting, I think that is a question for concern. Right, as again, that form, as you guys see, I have been playing highlights. His form is very low. His release is very low. Right, you like to see how guys like to get their hands up, and his form is a bit slow. His release is a bit weird. His shot is kind of forward, right, which is a bit weird. So I would like to see him maybe work out those mechanics a bit, maybe try to get his shot a bit up. But then at the same time, you could say, well, he's shooting a good percentage in college, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But you've seen how John Morant has struggled so far during his tenure in the NBA with his jump shot. And I hope that Jaden Ivey can continue to expand on his on-ball shooting. And while it's not necessarily a huge concern, it's just seeing it translate with that form. It's something that I do worry about a bit with him. And I think if he can take advantage of his ability to put pressure on the defense, and as well as if he can just expand on his on-ball shooting a little bit, not be to the point where he's a terrible on-ball shooter, but just a solid average one. In the early stage of his career, Jaden Ivey could really be something special. But hopefully he continues to progress on his form and just his on-ball shooting in general, as I think that's another swing skill for him. So overall, his swing skills are going to be his playmaking and his on-ball shooting, which will ultimately determine his ceiling. If he can figure both of those things out, he's going to be pretty much a perennial all-star point guard, right? But if he can't figure those things out, I see him being much more of a combo guard, being a very good starter for any NBA team. And right now, I have him projected as a top 5 pick. I think he's been amongst the 5 best players in college basketball, as he's been the best player on what was the number 1 team. Shout out Rutgers and Ron Harper, my Scarlet Knights. But again, he's been the best player on a top 5 team in the country. He's pretty much been a poor man's John Morant, as I stated throughout the video, which is a great thing to be. So right now, I think Jaden Ivey is going to be a top 10 pick. I think ultimately he should be the first guard off the board. The only other guard that I think is in the conversation with him is Jaden Hardy, who has had an up and down time, in the G League with the G League Ignite, which we did talk about him before the season got underway, before the G League season in his case got underway. And I think at this point in time, Jaden Ivey has surpassed Jaden Hardy as a prospect, right? The 2 Jadens. So again, I do expect Jaden Hardy, excuse me, I got them mixed up. I do expect Jaden Ivey to be the first guard off the board and be a top 5 pick in this upcoming NBA draft. And that is the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please drop a like and share it with a friend. I want to keep growing this channel. As I previously stated in my last video, the semester's pretty much over. And, I was my first semester in college, so I was kind of trying to figure out that balance between, schoolwork and trying to work on my channel. As I did take like about a month off of the channel just to get my school situation sorted out. So I am going to be much, much more active on the channel now. And again, I apologize for taking that break, but again, I'm going to be much, much more active on the channel, so stay on the lookout for more content I have coming. And like I said before, if you enjoy my content, please leave a like, comment what you guys think about Jaden Ivey. Do you guys like him as a prospect, dislike him? What do you guys think about his performance against Rutgers? Let me know. I want to have conversations with you guys. I love this game of basketball, as I do have a YouTube channel about basketball. So obviously I love the game, and I want to talk about it with as much people as I possibly can. And please comment. Let me know what you guys think about Jaden Ivey in the comments. And without any further delay, that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and please take care and have a blessed day.